Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Excited to be back with you here today. Looking forward to our Total Wellness Tuesday show. And on today's show, by popular demand, I wanted to do a follow-up topic on parasites. But not just anything about parasites. You probably heard maybe the last couple shows I did on it. If not, I'm going to link those up today. But what I wanted to talk about today were the lesser known symptoms of parasites. Meaning these are symptoms of dis-ease in the body, but they're not always correlated with a parasitic-based infection. So we'll go over that today. And here's why. We've done 4 shows now on parasites, and we've done a lot of shows. So we've done over 1,000 shows now. And when I do a parasite show, there's a lot of feedback in terms of questions, meaning that I have this disease or I have this symptom. Could it be from a parasite? And what I want to do is try to answer that today with this show. Because way back on episode 262, I gave you 7 signs of a parasite-based infection. That was an important show. That was way back. That was almost 3 years ago. We're on episode 1124. So stephencabral.com/1124. I promise at that show notes link today, I will link up to the previous podcast shows. So you can go back and listen to those because they're all different. I want to spend about 20 minutes on each show, just given it's its own topic. But on that show, 262 is basically an introduction 3 years ago for everyone, right? For our community. What does it look like if you have a parasite-based infection? Because if you get a parasite, hardly ever will you say, oh, I got a parasite, except if, let's say you're traveling, and a lot of people get it when they go to South America or they go to Mexico, and they end up with loose stool, diarrhea, and they can't get rid of it, right? Or they go on a camping trip, and they drink unfiltered water from a stream that doesn't really have a lot of flow to it. It's more like sitting still water. And they get a parasite. Giardia is very common of a parasite from just drinking water on a camping trip. Like that's not uncommon. But what people didn't know when they heard episode 262 is some of the other ones. So I want to add on to that today because believe it or not, there are a lot of other symptoms of a parasite that are not as overt, meaning that you would never typically correlate a lot of these with the symptoms that you're suffering right now. But the problem is this. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I have a MTHFR gene mutation. I have a COMT mutation. I have issues with histamines. I have this, and this. And they're doing a lot of the right things to balance those. But a deeper underlying cause of those issues, of why they're flared up, could actually be a parasitic-based infection. It isn't always, but I'm going to give you some easy ways to test, okay? So I will link up the previous shows. Today, I'll talk about those just a little bit more. But for those people that are new to the world of parasites, we essentially have anything, think of it as like a gut bug. We like to call them gut bugs. We have roundworms, or let me give you the breakdown of what they are. So they're basically protozoa. So think of protozoa as and these are essentially microscopic. You're not going to see them typically and take them in because you, of course, wouldn't eat them. Now, you can see some of them. You can see some of the worms. You can see them in fish. You can see them in some meat. And we'll get to that in a moment. But protozoa, these are single cell, small, microscopic. Malaria could be one, Giardia is one, and these are tiny, right? But they can be brought in through the body as well. I'll talk about where in just a moment, just real quick. We have the helminths. These are basically worms. Most well-known are roundworms, pinworms, tapeworms, right? Pinworms are super common in kids, picking them up at a local park, sandbox, etc. Okay, we've got tapeworms. Tapeworms can live in your body for 10 years, just one. It can grow up to 35 feet long. We've got roundworms. They can lay 200,000 eggs a day in your intestines. And I know this sounds gross, and to be honest, it is gross. These are basically worms, that's what parasites are, living inside of your body. And then we know about others that are called ectoparasites. I actually just did this topic probably about a month or two ago. I recorded it for the Integrative Health Practitioner Level 2. You would go in depth on these types of issues, and this one with obviously parasite-based testing. But the ectoparasites live on the host, and that would be lice or be fleas. Like your pet could sometimes get fleas, right? Well, those are parasites too, but they live on the outside. They feed on the outside as well. Just a real quick refresher, but 70%, so 70% of parasites are not visible to the naked eye. And we're typically picking them up in undercooked meat, undercooked shellfish or fish, raw fish. Sushi is a big one. Okay. If we're exposed to animal feces or human feces without us knowing about it, right? Because someone didn't wash their hands, or, literally that's how these things happen. And I know it's gross, but it is. This is a real part of the world that we live, especially if you eat out a lot or you're traveling overseas like I have, and you have to be more wary of it, okay? And then less common ways, or if I haven't mentioned this, and I believe I did in the beginning, but tap water, meaning like non-decontaminated tap water is going to be contaminated, right? So you have a much bigger possibility of getting a parasite that way. Okay, but again, I've covered those in previous shows, so I will link up to those as well. What I'd like to talk about is a lot of times what people don't speak about. And that is 1 out of essentially 14 people. This is in the US. It's actually much higher overseas, and especially in Asia and Africa as well. And without a doubt in South America. So in Europe, although US is even less than Europe, Canada, much lower. Australia, lower, okay? But 14 out of 100 people. That's still a pretty big number, right? 13.9% of the population, the US population. 1 out of 14 people has a parasite. Most don't know it, and here's why. That's why I wanted to go over today's topic. Because the parasite doesn't always cause the loose stool and the diarrhea and the cramping and a little bit of anal itchiness at night, which can be the pinworms. Or I've spoke about it on episode 262, adult acne. You get acne on the forehead. You get acne on your back. That can be a parasite as well. Night sweats, a big one, right? A big one, night sweats, okay? Why? Parasites are nocturnal. They're more active at night. You're going to get the pinworms, the anal itchiness. You're going to get sometimes the issues, the stomach cramping, the issues at night, a little bit more bloating at night. And certainly the acne and all of that can be ongoing. But why don't we talk about today? A lot of times people have these symptoms, and believe me, these didn't happen overnight. They've been going on for years, which means that you could look back and you could say, oh, I did travel to X and I got this. But remember, 14 people in the US have a parasite. Not everyone got it traveling. They got it right here in the US. Now, it's not as common to get it from drinking water, that's for sure. But it could be. It's possible that you got it from even a salad bar where there's parasites there from contaminated water there, or you got it from undercooked meat or undercooked fish, sushi. You got it from just, I know this is going to sound gross as well, but it's possible. Shaking hands or bathrooms, things like that as well. So that's why hand washing is so important. I just share this with you. And I know it's along the whole topic. It's kind of a gross topic today. It is what it is, but we need to know about this, right? We can't shy away just because it's a little bit gross. So I travel quite a bit, and I'm in airports. I'm at seminars speaking. We use the bathroom during breaks, and people are washing their hands. There's like 20 guys in the bathroom, in the public bathrooms, and I'm there washing my hands, and I see the majority of guys walk by me right out of the bathroom without ever washing their hands, right? They don't wash their hands. And I'm like, this is disgusting. And I remember back when I was in college, one of my buddies came out of the bathroom and he just went right to the kitchen. And I go, whoa, wash your hands. Like, what are you doing? What's going on here? And I'm in college. Like, I don't know all this information, but I know, don't go use our kitchen with your unclean hands. Like, that's a no-no. And he says to me, he's like, no. He's like, I don't know how to say this the proper way. He's like, it's my body. He's like, I'm fine. I'm clean. Whatever I have, I already have. And I said, okay, I understand that, but what about the rest of us? And it never dawned on him like that does not make sense. Like, that does not pass the logic test. He's a very smart guy. He's at a good school. what is he doing not washing his hands? Like, this just comes back to hygiene. But why am I mentioning this? That the majority of guys that I see in a bathroom do not wash their hands. Well, it means this, that all of those people are shaking other people's hands, and they're touching things on airplanes, and they're going back to the convention. Like, you meet people, you shake their hand, and you can see how easily germs can be spread. And I'm not here to try to like scare anyone today, and I still shake people's hands. I introduce myself to hundreds of people when I'm at events. But what I don't do is I make sure that that hand stays away from my eyes, my nose, and my mouth. That's for sure. And I'm not a Purell guy. I don't use alcohol, the alcohol rubs. But before I eat, I'm washing my hands. There's no doubt about that. Teach your kids that. Do it yourself, even if you're just at your home. Just wash those hands. You know, that's just the way that it is. Your pet. I love my dog, right? My French Bulldog. He's great. But he goes to the dog park. And those paws that he comes into the house with are not clean. And so again, wash your hands. Like, that's what's important. I'm not going to stop petting him or all those things. But again, you have to keep that in mind. So let's get back on the topic. You can see how it might be much easier than you think now to get a parasite, or many different types of viruses, but let's just go with parasite for right now. So what I want to share with you are the lesser known signs. I want to start with mood. If for no apparent reason, meaning like you didn't have extra relationship issues, extra work issues, any type of extra stress, but lately, maybe over the past couple months, it's just crept up. You have lower mood, you have more anxiety, more nervousness, and maybe a little bit of memory problems as well. And I would say we'll save that maybe for a separate one. But let's think low mood, anxiety, nervousness, even maybe a little bit of teeth grinding in there as well, especially at night. Really good sign that that could be a parasite. Is it the only thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Could be mineral deficiency, could be B vitamin deficiency. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. However, those are signs, absolutely, and I've seen them in my own private practice, of a potential parasite. Another big one. A lot of people have said this before, and I talked about it on a previous show. But if you have a strong craving for sugary foods, or it's almost like hard to stay and feel full, you could have a parasite. I want to give you a couple reasons behind that. One is the parasite is stealing some of your food and nutrients. But the other is that when you get a imbalanced microbiome, that parasite, some inflammation, other intestinal permeability as well, could lead to then subsequent issues in the microbiome, such as a SIBO or Candida overgrowth. So it's kind of like, which one came first? Well, typically the yeast and SIBO are not going to allow for a parasite in. Being on a proton pump inhibitor, being on an acid blocker can absolutely let parasites in, because acid is supposed to stop the parasites. Acid is supposed to cook those parasites and kill them. But if you're on an acid blocker, that's a problem, right? That is why it's one of the biggest drugs I'm against, are proton pump inhibitors or acid blockers. I'm hugely against it. One is they don't allow you to properly break down your protein, so it sits there and ferments. It can lead to all sorts of different yeast overgrowth, SIBO, as well as parasites. Poor mineral absorption, poor vitamin absorption, B12, can lead to dementia. Now, is it the exact link to dementia? No. But it's like one more thing that leads to it, right? If you can't break down your nutrients, and we know many of those nutrients are needed for your brain, we can see there's a correlation. That's why there is no one thing that causes Alzheimer's. There's no one thing that causes cancer. You can get cancer being exposed to radiation. You can be exposed to pesticides, heavy metals. I mean, you can literally, I didn't name all of them, but there's 77,000 man-made chemicals that can all lead to cancer. So there's many different ways. That's why there's no silver bullet. You know, when we do a march for Alzheimer's, a march against cancer, I'm not against them. I love bringing awareness. But if you're looking for the drug, the silver bullet that's going to stop all of those, I think we're going to have to keep looking. That's the problem. And the problem is it's lifestyle based. It's why don't we check ourselves a lot more often and do real healthcare, which is preventative medicine. And then you can see these things start to come on. Not when you're 68 years old and you have your first signs of dementia. Sure, there's a lot you can do at 68, but why can't we do it at 48, 38, 28, right? That's my goal for people, is to understand that you can take back control of your health and should, because no one else is going to do it at a much younger age. All right. So the opposite of the sometimes strong cravings is just a complete loss of appetite. Oftentimes that happens, though, not because just of the parasite infestation, but also because of the uneasiness you feel with the IBS-based symptoms, that gas, the bloating, those types of things. Other ones I want to talk about. You can have skin rashes, unexplained skin rashes. Perioral or periorbital dermatitis, I've linked to a couple things. Yeast is a huge one. Food sensitivities is one of my number one. And then a tertiary can be parasites. It's not as common as candida overgrowth, that's for sure, but I've seen it with that as well. Same with recurring yeast infections. I know that it's a hard correlation, but oftentimes it's because the microbiome, that just means your intestines, the flora, the bacteria in there, becomes imbalanced when there are other things living there that should not be living there. They take up space. Everything takes up space. Now, what does that also mean? Well, it creates biofilms. And these biofilms can also cause issues for your natural immune system to keep yeast at bay. So let's look at that as well. I already mentioned food sensitivities way back in the day. Big one, though. I want to talk about this. Unexplained joint pain or muscle inflammation, stiffness. This is not going to happen overnight with parasites. I see this after 6 months, a year, 2-3 years of having parasites. Because remember, these things grow. They grow not only in the size of their actual structure, but the number, because they're laying eggs. That's why it's important when you do a parasite-based protocol to get the ova, the eggs, and the single cell, as well as the worms themselves. Okay. So I mentioned the skin rashes, the itchiness that can come along with it. This is huge. If you have itchy skin, especially at night, and you can't correlate it with anything, you can't correlate it with specific foods, you can't correlate it with any type of your diet or with allergy season, because again, it could just be seasonal allergies. You have issues with pollen and it's April 1st. Then I'm not going to say parasites. It's going to be allergies most likely, right? But if you have it, it's consistent and it's stronger at night, it can be parasites. Something to think about. Just two more I really want to go with. This is a big one. It's not always the case, or is it always the most likely reason for infertility? But infertility can be caused by parasites as well. Sexual dysfunction in general. So that can mean sexual performance, but it can also mean the ability to conceive. And it's my belief, and it will be my belief, it will continue to be my belief because it's part of the Eastern-based philosophy, that your body is going to self-regulate. And if your body doesn't feel like it's in a strong enough position in order to conceive and carry a child for the length of that pregnancy, it will not allow itself to get pregnant. Sometimes yes, right? Sometimes yes, we know that. But more so now than ever is a no. And that's because we see so many people and so many women in our practice unable to conceive because of, again, not just parasites. It's only one reason, but mainly because of higher levels of stress and gut-based dysfunction. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or candida overgrowth, much more likely than parasites. I'm not going to say that it's not. Okay, the nice thing is you can test for basically all of them. Not basically, you can. But I will say that what then happens is we get a lowering of metabolism. And metabolism has to do with the overall metabolism and movement and conception of the body as well. So if we have lower levels of adrenal output, lower levels of thyroid, or even higher levels of cortisol showing stress, it's going to be harder to conceive. You're going to have lower levels of progesterone. Okay, really important to go over that one. One more I'd like to go over. Okay, this is a big one. And it's almost, I'm telling you right now, your PCP or MD will almost never tie this to parasites. If you have anemia, you have low red blood cell, not red blood cell count, but you have low hemoglobin, hematocrit levels, any of the MCH counts, means corporal hematocrit, any of those counts in your blood, and you have lower levels of oxygen. It could even be fatigue, lower levels of iron, lower levels of B vitamins. It's possible that you have a parasite. Here's why. It makes perfect sense. if there's something feeding off of the food that you take in, that's one big reason. But here's another, is that oftentimes we get inflammation of the intestinal wall, the gut where the parasites are. There's an immune battle going on. We get microscopic bleeding in the intestines. You won't see blood in your stool typically. Your stool might be a little darker. So your stool should be medium brown. A lot of people don't know this, but just the color of like an Amazon box that you get in the mail, right? That corrugated cardboard. That should be the color of your stool. If it's darker than that, it can actually mean you have a little bit of blood in the stool, okay? If you have blood in the stool, it can be from many different reasons. A lot of it isn't really, it's not harmless because there's something going on, but it's this low level, low grade inflammation where there's this microscopic bleeding. What happens is we see that because it comes down and the blood is actually not oxygenated. It's going to be black by the time it comes out and it's dark. So that can happen from parasites as well. And it can lead to a slow, gradual loss of blood, which can lead to anemia. Anemia for multiple levels, B vitamins as well as iron, because anemia does not just mean iron alone. It could be copper, it could be B vitamins, it can actually be multiple other cofactors, and iron. Iron's just the most common one. And that's a big factor. If you have ongoing issues, especially with your iron levels, and you have any of the symptoms that I just named, as well as the ones on episode 262, I can't recommend enough running the stool-based test. I would love for you to run the organic acids test with the stool test to really see what's going on with your gut. It will look at B vitamins. It will look at candida overgrowth. It will look at C. diff, Clostridium difficile. It will look at beneficial bacteria. But it will also look at H. pylori, which I talked about on a previous show, Helicobacter pylori. You'll be able to look at parasites, the ova and the worms that I just spoke about. You'll be able to look at bacterial overgrowth. Organic acids test and stool test. If you just want to test for parasites with H. pylori and bacterial overgrowth, that's the stool test. I'll link them up today. Simply go to stevencabral.com/1124. Now, keep in mind, I always say this, I want you to be able to get the help that you need and deserve any way that you can. If you're a PCP, if you're a gastroenterologist, if whoever you see is willing to run the same type of lab, then great. Do that with them. I have no problem. As long as they can provide you with the lab, with the know-how on how to interpret it, and then if there's something wrong with the protocol of what to do. So not only do I not have a problem with it, I support it of you being able to work with someone on an ongoing basis. However, I want to open source functional medicine and true medicine, in my opinion, for the world. So in 19 countries, essentially, we're able to ship out labs and get people these results to them. They can send it back to the lab. We don't own any of these labs, but we just give you the ability to do that because you need a doctor to sign off on it. I read your results. We give you a plan for you. But again, it does not have to be us. Work with a qualified practitioner that's able to do that for you. So today, everything will be at 1124. I'll link up the previous 4 podcasts. I'll link up the stool test, the organic acids test, and I'll link up the parasite protocol. Maybe you just want to go straight to a parasite protocol. That's okay. I have no problem with that. I like the lab testing because you can look at other factors such as candida overgrowth, and you can also look at small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and H. pylori. But I want you to do what works for you. Now, on episode 887, let's go back to that. Just a quick recap. On episode 887, 262, I gave you other signs of a parasite. Those are the initial ones. On 887, I gave you the 4 cleanses to do yearly. So no matter who you are, this was always done during ancient times. Not even ancient times. It was done all the way up to a couple hundred years ago. They did things called dewormings. That's what they did. So we've got parasite is basically a deworming, parasite protocol. We've got the intestinal protocol. And you can check out that show for the other 2 cleanses to do every year. And I tell you how to go through them, okay? 887, the 4 cleanses to do yearly. The second to last one is 928. 928, the parasite protocol and testing procedures. I tell you, all of this is open source. You can go to the website, equilibriumnutrition.com. You can look up the stool test. You can look up the organic acids test. You can look up our parasite protocol. And if you want to get it on your own anywhere, you can do that. The goal is information. The goal is to spread this information all around the world. Millions of people, as many people as we can get this to, because there is no one else who's going to take care of us. There really isn't. Like, honestly, there's no one else who's going to do this. And so that's why we have to spread it with each other. So I literally lay out for you what I use in the parasite and testing procedures. That's 928. I tell you exactly why. And the last one is 977. And I give you natural herbs and foods that will kill gut bugs and parasites. Great episode. I use it all the time. I try to incorporate those a lot in my weekly eating. All right. Hopefully this was helpful. You got a bunch of the lesser known signs right now. If you're struggling, lab test. If you're on the fence, you don't know what to do, maybe you just dive right in. You just listen to the parasite protocol of how we do it, and then you do that for yourself as well. Whatever works for you, my goal is to get you started, get you moving forward, and that's the best thing that you can do, because as you start to move forward, you begin to feel so much better. You want to do more of that, and you really start to live that healthy lifestyle. So hopefully today's show was helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. Always appreciate your time, your listens, your downloads, your shares. And as I always say, if the show was helpful, please do feel free to pass along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.